Bread, please. Please give some wheat for my mom's store. The child, who had been watching their mother's desperate pleas up close, wanted to help her too and appealed to their grandmother, who was working in the field. It was the grandmother's actions after that which led to our meeting. My name is Damien. My family owns vast wheat fields that stretch as far as the eye can see, and we've been wheat farmers for generations. My dad reluctantly took over the farm and told me to choose my own path and pursue what I wanted. A mix of guilt and relief wrestled in my heart. As a child, I hated the bugs in the soil and swore I would never become a farmer. But watching my grandmother and parents grow older while tirelessly tending the wheat made me wonder if I could just ignore the family business. Still, I leaned on my dad's words, left home to attend college, and started living alone an hour and a half away by car. After graduation, I stayed there and became an office worker. Farming does not allow for long breaks. Wheat farming is often thought of as planting and harvesting, but the critical steps, soil preparation, seedling care, weeding, and water management, require a year-round effort to produce quality wheat. As a result, I have few memories of summer vacations or long holidays. Almost none, actually. That's why, when my friends, whose fathers were office workers or government employees, shared stories about their trips, it was hard for me. So once I became a college student and started living alone, I made the most of long breaks and holidays by traveling as much as I could. I worked hard at part-time jobs to fund those adventures. That's how I became an office worker, without ever helping out at the family farm. During long holidays, I'd visit home and feel a bit of a sense of duty to help out, fumbling with tasks I wasn't used to. But before long, my mom would tell me to relax since I was home, making me feel like more of a hindrance than a help. I became the only son who could only vaguely watch the backs of my parents and grandmother as they worked so hard. I'm sure the neighbors think of me as the unreliable son or worry about the large farm going to waste. But it's not like my relationship with my parents is bad. They supported me when I decided to become an office worker. When I left home, they were certain I wouldn't come back. And yet, I never explicitly said I didn't want to take over the farm. Deep down, I always thought I'd have to carry it on. Still, I clung to the hope that my parents would always be healthy enough to run the farm themselves. I knew that was an illusion, but I continued avoiding the issue, living solely for myself. Work was going well, I earned a promotion, and had a team under me. I wasn't without opportunities to meet someone, but I found spending all my time on myself too enticing to seriously consider marriage. 15 years into my career, I might become the youngest department manager in the company. Such rumors were going around. Amid my busy yet fulfilling days, I received a panicked call from Mom. "Damien, your dad." When I picked up the phone, that was all Mom managed to say before breaking into sobs. "Mom, what happened? What's going on with Dad?" Feeling a wave of anxiety from her tone, I told her I'd head to the family house right away and ended the call. I wrapped up work, took the afternoon off, and hurriedly drove back home. When I arrived, neither of my parents were there, only Grandma was home, keeping watch. "Grandma, did something happen to Dad?" I called out loudly as soon as I stepped into the house. But it seemed Grandma didn't hear me. She didn't even turn around, completely engrossed in the TV. "Grandma." As I tried calling out again, my phone rang at that very moment. "Hello, Mom." This time, it was Mom on the line, sounding calm now. As soon as I answered, she asked me to come to the local hospital. Apparently, Dad had been injured. The word hospital immediately sent a jolt through me. and I sped off toward the nearby clinic. At the reception desk, I gave Dad's name and was directed to his room. My footsteps echoed as I rushed down the hall to his bedside. Dad. The room had 6 beds, and Dad was lying on the one by the window, furthest in. "Damien, don't shout like that. It's embarrassing." Dad said this while looking at me, a bit red-faced, feeling the stares of the other patients in the room. I gave a brief greeting to them before walking over to Dad's side. "Dad, what's this about an injury?" Seeing the alarm on my face, Dad muttered to Mom under his breath that I was overreacting. "I'm sorry, Damien. Dad fell off the tractor and hurt his back pretty badly. The ambulance brought him here, and I just couldn't shake my anxiety. I get so worked up," Mom explained, looking a little sheepish. "Damien probably misunderstood because you called him crying," Dad said. Hearing this, Mom apologized repeatedly. It turned out that today was just for observation and tests, and Dad would be discharged by tomorrow evening. Relieved to my core, I ran a hand through my hair. Then, Grandma came to mind. When I got home earlier, I called out to Grandma, but she didn't respond or say anything. Mom nodded and replied, "Grandma's hearing has gotten worse lately. She used to be so active, always working in the fields. Now, she mostly just sits and watches TV absent-mindedly." Mom wore a slightly troubled expression as she spoke. To me, Grandma had always been a picture of energy, tending to the fields tirelessly. Now in her 90s, it was a wonder she had stayed so active for so long. Yet, seeing her staring blankly at the TV made me feel a pang of sadness. Is it really okay for her to be left home alone? I asked Mom, worried. "She's usually fine, but every now and then, she starts saying things that don't make much sense." Dad, who had been listening, gently urged us to head back home, clearly concerned about Grandma. As I drove, it wasn't long before I heard Mom's soft snores from the passenger seat. Surely, she must have fallen asleep feeling safe. As I stopped at a red light, I glanced at Mom's peaceful face and remembered Dad's expression when I left the hospital. For the first time, they seemed so much older to me. Well, it's only natural, considering I'm already 37 years old. My parents had spent their entire lives working tirelessly on the farm, never complaining or grumbling about the daily grind. As their faces crossed my mind, an old, long-forgotten issue about who would take over the family farm crept into my thoughts. Driving down the familiar road home, I found myself contemplating what lay ahead. When we finally arrived, the sound of the engine shutting off woke Mom. "You should take a shower and get some rest early tonight," I said, and she nodded silently. "Stephanie, I'm home." Hearing her voice, Grandma peeked out from the kitchen. "How is he?" Her voice carried concern for Dad, but she also looked surprised to see me. "Oh, Damien, is that you? Did you come back after hearing about your dad?" "Thank you, sweetie. Dinner's almost ready." Grandma turned to head back into the kitchen. "Mom, why don't you go ahead and shower? I'll help Grandma in the kitchen." Grandma smiled and showed me the pot she was stirring. "Tonight's dinner is your favorite." By the following evening, Dad was discharged from the hospital. Thankfully, it was just a hard hit to his back, no fractures, no cracks. He was told to take it easy for a while, and that was it. Since it was the weekend, I picked him up from the hospital and brought him back home. That night, I thought about heading back to my place, but Dad told me he had something to talk about, so I decided to stay another night at the family house. "What is it?" After dinner, a shower, and some TV, I asked him as he relaxed on the couch. Yes, that's right." He hesitated, and Mom came over to sit beside him. The three of us faced each other. "Damien, I've decided it's time for me to step away from this work. Dad said he was thinking about either selling the farmland or leasing it out. It seemed his decision to quit had already been made. Wait a minute. What about the new wheat variety you worked so hard on? You said things were finally going well. Ever since my grandfather's time, Dad had been committed to developing a new wheat variety that could become the pride of our region. Only recently had it started gaining recognition, with sales picking up steadily. But despite the success, more and more farmers were giving up, and Dad felt it was becoming too difficult for him and Mom to manage the vast fields alone. I'm planning to make the upcoming contest my last. My body just doesn't respond like it used to. Falling off the tractor was a wake-up call. When I was younger, I would have never made a mistake like that, he said, his face showing deep disappointment. Is that really okay with you? Just like that, you're going to give up everything our family has passed down for generations. Why? Why won't you trust me, your eldest son, to help you out? The words spilled out of my mouth before I realized it, leaving my parents stunned. And to be honest, I was stunned myself. It hit me then I wanted Dad to rely on me. Damien. At 37, I felt a little pathetic, saying things that sounded so childish, but deep down, I wanted to be relied on by Dad and carry on the legacy of this land passed down by our ancestors. That feeling lingered somewhere within me. Dad, I was so happy when you told me to follow my dreams. But as the eldest son of this family, I want to do something for this family too. If you're ready to step back, then it's my turn to protect this place. When I said that, both Dad and Mom looked at me, their eyes brimming with tears. Damien, are you sure about this? What about your job? You've been promoted, and I thought you were on track to become a manager soon. I waved my right hand dismissively. It's fine, it's fine. The company will manage just fine without me as a manager, but Dad and Mom need me to step up. Thank you for letting me live so freely until now. From here on, I'll take responsibility for this family. I declared it firmly in front of my parents. After that, I submitted my resignation to the company, left my one-bedroom apartment, and moved back home. From then on, my days were filled with learning the ropes from Dad and collapsing into bed, utterly exhausted, at night. Even though it was a family business, there was so much to learn, and it all felt so new. Working hard made meals taste even better, but every now and then, as I neared 40, a feeling of loneliness crept in, wondering if I'd spend the rest of my life here without meeting anyone. That feeling, however, was wiped away when we received the results of the wheat competition. The new wheat variety that Dad had poured his heart into was ranked A grade. After that, we saw a surge of interest from professionals in the food industry, eager to form partnerships. But Dad chose not to sign any contracts and continued selling to local wheat distributors. Why not sign a deal? That shop earlier was a pretty big name, wasn't it? When I asked, Dad replied, "It's a generous offer, but I just don't have the energy for it anymore. And seeing this new variety gain recognition is enough for me." He said this with a weary but genuine smile. Dad, who never sought luxury or acted boastful despite the praise he received, just continued his quiet work as a farmer. I'm sure he had other dreams he wanted to chase, but he never complained, never uttered a word of regret, and worked tirelessly every single day. What a waste. That's how I felt. One day, amidst our unchanged routine, Grandma came home with a small boy I'd never seen before. "Stephanie, who is that boy?" Mom looked surprised, staring at the boy holding Grandma's hand. Since I don't have kids, I couldn't guess a boy's age. Mom quickly turned to the child and asked, Hi, sweetheart. Where's your mom? Can you tell me your name? How old are you? Mom, suspecting Grandma had done something outrageous, fired off questions at the child. Startled by Mom's rapid questioning, the boy hid behind Grandma, showing only his hand. He held up 4 fingers, signaling he was 4 years old. In a shy, soft voice, he said his name, Cody. Then, he looked down. So, your name is Cody. Where is your mom? But Cody said nothing. Then, Mom looked at Grandma. He was playing alone just over there. When I called out to him, he said he was looking for some wheat. I told him we had plenty at home. Then he said he'd help out in exchange for some wheat. Grandma noticed Mom's troubled expression and seemed to speak with a guilty tone. Stephanie. Mom sighed, clearly struggling. Grandma must have thought she was doing a good deed by bringing the child, but it was obvious that Mom, as a parent, was deeply worried. If Damien were married, he'd probably have a kid around this age. Right. Wait, is Damien married? Could this be Damien's child? Grandma, lost in her own assumptions, looked overwhelmed and confused. Suddenly, Grandma became visibly restless. At that moment, a woman's voice called out, almost screaming, "Cody!" Standing around Cody in the front yard, we all froze, startled by the voice. That's Mom's voice. Mom, I'm over here, Cody shouted, waving his arms wildly so his mom could find him. Cody. The woman rushed over, kneeling down to hug Cody tightly. Cody, you can't just wander off like that. Her face showed anger, but relief was written all over her expression. I'm sorry. Grandma said she had lots of wheat, so I thought I could help and get some. Cody's eyes brimmed with tears as he tried to explain desperately. Cody, I see. You were trying so hard to help me. I'm so sorry. Forcing a tired smile, the woman hugged Cody even tighter. Grandma brought Cody here without asking, and I'm truly sorry for the trouble. Seeing how deeply worried the woman was, I offered a heartfelt apology. Grandma, watching this, I'm so sorry, I truly am. Please forgive me. Also apologized repeatedly to the young mom. Grandma, clearly elderly, stood there remorsefully, while the woman said nothing, simply observing her. Sweat glistened on her lightly made-up forehead. She must have searched everywhere for her child. Frantic, her dry lips and flushed cheeks painted a vivid picture of her panic. Even standing nearby, you could feel just how deeply worried she must have been. I sincerely apologize. She didn't mean any harm. Please forgive us. I knew words wouldn't truly fix this situation. Still, we kept apologizing, feeling it was the best thing we could do. But the woman didn't say anything in response. Concerned, I looked at her and noticed her face had gone pale. She seemed unsteady on her feet. Are you all right? When I asked, the woman suddenly leaned into me, unable to keep herself upright. Sorry, I just felt dizzy all of a sudden. She tried to steady herself, but her body seemed to lack strength. Worried, I carried her inside the house. Cody, looking anxious, followed closely, saying, Mom, are you okay? I laid the woman down on the sofa and asked her softly. The woman tried to sit up, but Mom and Grandma stopped her and handed her a glass of water. She looked apologetic as she accepted the water with a quiet thank you. Just then, Cody came over to her holding a juice box. Mom, Grandma gave me this juice. It was a simple paper carton of juice. Cody hadn't even pierced it with a straw yet, waiting for Mom's permission before drinking it. At that moment, Cody's stomach growled audibly. Hearing that, the woman gently said to him, Hold on a second, okay. Grandma walked in carrying a plate piled high with sandwiches. We've got plenty of wheat here. How about some sandwiches? The large platter was brimming with sandwiches. Cody's face lit up with a big smile. "Yes," he exclaimed, reaching for a sandwich. The woman shouted, "Cody!" But by then, he was already clutching sandwiches in both hands. "Go ahead and eat up, dear. You need your strength. Our wheat is the best in the region," Grandma said, placing a sandwich in front of the woman. She hesitated for a moment, then slowly took a bite. "Delicious. So good," she spoke softly, then continued eating in silence, savoring each bite. Cody also ate to his heart's content, finally looking a little more relaxed. "Bathroom," he said, tugging on the woman's hand. "I'll show you where it is," I offered, motioning for him to follow. Cody quietly followed behind me. After finishing in the bathroom, Cody approached me with curiosity. "How do you make wheat?" When he asked, I explained what Dad had taught me about growing it, but it seemed too complicated for Cody, who looked at me with wide, bewildered eyes as I spoke. "When you get home, you can tell your dad about it." Cody's expression fell slightly. "I don't have a dad." I didn't know how to respond to that. Just then, Mom called out to us. "Damien, Cody's mom wants to talk to you." My heart suddenly began to race as I followed her back to the living room. The woman sat up on the sofa, looked directly at me. "Would you consider working with me?" and said abruptly, "I'm sorry for the late introduction. My name is Taylor, and I run a bakery." She handed me a business card as she spoke. "I want to make bread using your wheat." As she pleaded, Cody clung to her side, mimicking her words with his own earnest little pleas. "Wait a moment, please," I said, trying to pause the conversation. Just then, Dad walked in and froze, startled by the sight of the unfamiliar mother and child. "And you are?" Before I could answer, Grandma spoke up loudly. "She runs a bakery." Grandma's voice trailed off as Mom leaned in to whisper something to Dad. Hearing her, Dad's eyes widened in surprise. Looking at Taylor and Cody, Dad bowed his head slightly and said sincerely, "I'm sorry if my mom caused you any trouble." Taylor shook her head lightly, then handed Dad a business card as well. "I run a bakery. My name is Taylor. Please, would you consider working with me?" Her expression was serious, her plea directed now at Dad. "I'm sorry, but if this is a sales pitch, we're not interested. Our family doesn't engage in such things." Dad clearly rejected her. Taylor, visibly taken aback, was left speechless. She simply took Cody's hand, politely greeted us, and left the house. Most people would have ended it there, but she was not like most people. Her determination was something to be admired. From that day on, she started visiting us nearly every week. It turned out that she was the owner of a bakery in a nearby town. As Cody had mentioned, she lost her husband before he was born and worked tirelessly to raise her child alone. The journey wasn't easy, but she made up her mind to push through. She experimented with unique bread fillings, used social media to attract customers, and even studied wheat extensively. Thanks to her efforts, word of mouth spread, and she was able to open her own store. Eventually, she secured a deal with a wheat farmer, making freshly sourced, high-quality wheat her bakery's signature feature. However, the farmer faced devastating natural disasters like floods and extreme heat, leading to reduced supply. Aging also forced him to retire, further impacting her bakery's operations. Desperate to maintain her unique selling point, she searched for a new wheat supplier, but struggled to find one that met her standards. One day, thanks to our grandma bringing Cody to our house, she discovered our farm. The color, texture, sweetness, and elasticity of our wheat surpassed her expectations and completely won her over. "I absolutely must use this wheat," Despite Dad's repeated refusals, she kept visiting. Cody and I have since become close friends. Whenever I'm scared of bugs, Cody, who loves them, quickly comes to my rescue. Taylor, in her attempts to secure the deal, even helps us during our busiest seasons. Grandma has started to mistakenly assume that Taylor and I were a couple. Every time Taylor visits, Grandma proudly boasts about how it was all thanks to her bringing Cody here that we were connected. Taylor listens to Grandma's stories without any hint of displeasure, making Grandma beam with happiness. At first, she came dressed in business attire, but now Taylor visits in casual clothes and blends seamlessly into our household. With her big eyes and high nose, she looks striking even without makeup. I often find myself thinking she must be quite popular. Her long hair is tied in a high ponytail, her hands are adorned with nail polish or jewelry, and she exudes a simplicity that speaks volumes about her character. It's clear how much effort she has put into protecting and raising Cody on her own. Lately, I can't help but wonder if her interest in me might extend beyond business. I've caught myself dreaming of a future where we might truly become a couple. This place is truly beautiful, and the air feels so fresh. During a lunch break, while Cody napped after playing too much, I found myself alone with Taylor, and we finally had a chance to talk one-on-one. This is a rural place with nothing much to offer, I said that while gazing at the endless fields and farmlands. It's thanks to Stephanie bringing Cody here. That's how I got to meet you, she said, her cheeks turning red. Seeing her like that, I must have been blushing just as much. Oh no, what am I even saying? She laughed shyly, but I took her hands in mine, looking at her seriously. I also look forward to you coming here every week, Taylor. So, please be my wife. The words of a proposal slipped out of my mouth. Wait, wife? Taylor asked back, and I suddenly felt a wave of embarrassment as I realized what I had just said. I'm sorry, that must have been too sudden. Right? Taylor silently shook her head. I'm happy. I've pictured moments like this so many times whenever I've come here, she said, holding my hands tightly in return. Even though it's a 2-hour drive, she's been coming here diligently, even helping out with our work. Gradually, Dad's feelings softened toward her. One day, Dad approached Taylor. Taylor, thank you for always helping us out. By the way, how's the bakery you mentioned? Is it doing okay? He asked, and she replied with a slightly sad expression. The bakery's main selling point was wheat from a contracted farmer. So once the wheat runs out, I'm thinking of closing the shop, she said, looking down. Do you really like our wheat that much? Dad asked, and Taylor lifted her face, smiling brightly. Yes, I love it. It's clear that the Miller family pours their heart into growing it. Dad looked pleased and told her, would you like to use our wheat for your shop? It was at this moment that I learned of Dad's true thoughts. The new wheat variety doesn't produce a large yield right now. For health concerns, the planting area has been significantly reduced. Moreover, I had just started farming, and Dad was a bit worried I might give up along the way. He didn't want to risk a contract that might inconvenience Taylor. However, seeing me work on preparing the old farmland for use, Dad grew confident that we could increase production from next year, and his worries eased. Seeing Damien's recent efforts, I believe we can ensure a stable supply, he said with a smile, nodding toward us. Knowing Dad's thoughts made my eyes well up. Beside me, Taylor was shedding tears of joy. After that, Taylor entrusted her bakery to her employees and moved here, taking on a management role in the background. Yes, we got married. Taylor revamped the bakery's website, featuring our family photos, mine, my parents, and grandma's, as the contracted wheat farmers. She uploaded pictures of us growing and shipping wheat, along with her making bread. The website attracted not only locals interested in the new wheat variety, but also tourists from abroad who came to try it. When someone posted about it on social media, more people came after seeing it. In this situation, Taylor and I have been discussing starting a farming experience program to spread awareness about our work as wheat farmers. Cody has also started attending the elementary school I went to as a child. As soon as he gets home, he dashes straight to the fields and helps out, getting completely covered in mud. "Dad, look," Cody said, holding a tiny frog in the palm of his hand and bringing it right up to my face. "Wow," I murmured, plopping down onto the muddy field myself. And soon enough, both of us were completely filthy. "What on earth are you two doing?" Taylor's loud exclamation echoed, making both my parents and Grandma burst into laughter. Now, as the Miller family, Taylor sandwiches are made exclusively for us to enjoy together as a family.
Karen, is lunch ready yet? I'm getting hungry. Really? It's only 11 a.m. Marie, you got up late this morning, and we had a late breakfast, so I thought a later lunch would be better. Ugh, I don't even remember eating. Maybe this is a sign of good health. Louis is hungry too, you know. Is that so? All right, I'll start preparing something now. I wish you'd do these things without being told. You really are inconsiderate. And clean our room already. It's been a week and the dust is piling up. Marie, the mother-in-law, takes it for granted to boss around her daughter-in-law. One would think that if she's so healthy, she could do her own cleaning and cooking. I can't understand why she stopped doing things she likely did herself before I came into the picture. I'm Karen Miller, a 30-year-old dual-income homemaker. I'm still working at the foreign company I joined before getting married. There are late hours, but hardly any weekend work, so I should be able to relax on Saturdays and Sundays. But from early morning to late night, I'm kept busy by my in-laws with household chores and errands. My husband doesn't help at all, even though I'm slaving away for his parents, Marie and Louis. I wasn't particular about living together or separately, so when my husband suggested living with his parents after we got married, I didn't resist. But lately, I've been wondering if it was a mistake. Living at home means no rent. My husband said so. Huh? But I thought to myself, of course, I never thought of living for free. But I did think it would be cheaper than renting elsewhere. So, we pay for utilities as a sort of rent. We split the food expenses with the in-laws, but since Louis and Marie, who are retired and at home all day, eat a lot for their age, it feels like we're paying more. Still, it's cheaper than renting an apartment. And since I was continuing to work after marriage, having the in-laws around seemed reassuring. I thought it would be easier if we shared the housework. When I work late, my husband has already finished dinner with his parents. It's easier than coming home late and having to cook, but there's never anything left for me. We both work, so I thought it was only fair that whoever can do the housework, does it. Before we got married, my husband said the same thing. He said, "Housework is a piece of cake. Leave it to me." So I thought he must have been doing various chores up until now. But it turns out, since getting married, he hasn't done a thing. Laundry, cleaning, tidying up, Marie had been doing it all. He won't even make instant food for himself. So, even if I'm working late and my husband comes home early, there's no way he'll prepare dinner. I should be grateful Marie is there, otherwise, I'd have to cook when I get back. But it's disheartening that my husband doesn't say a word, even when my portion isn't prepared. And he never lifts a finger to clean up. The dirty dishes remain on the table, and the used pots and utensils are left in the kitchen. I end up cleaning up after meals I didn't even eat. Coming home tired from work and then dealing with this is quite exhausting. My husband, having skipped dinner preparation, acts as if he's had it easy, which just adds to my frustration. In this house, everyone thinks it's natural for the daughter-in-law to do the cleaning and laundry. The in-laws don't even clean their own room. On my days off, chores pile up as if they've been saving them just for me. Sometimes, I wonder if they're deliberately creating tasks for me. Louis is 68 and Marie is 65, but they're incredibly energetic and talkative. They seem more vigorous than me, so I wonder why they can't do the housework. Well, it's good that they're healthy. It would be much harder if they needed care. That's true, but listen, if it ever gets too much, come back home. You always have a place to return to here. Don't feel like you have to endure everything. If you want to escape, you don't have to suffer in silence. Mom, but you're also going through a lot, aren't you? Please don't overdo it either. Having Mom to listen to my complaints helps me keep going. But right now, I have another worry. My father, Sam, is ill and in the hospital. His condition doesn't seem to be improving. My parents are a close couple, and Mom visits him almost daily. I try to visit as much as I can, but between work and chores at my in-laws, it's hard. When I finally manage to visit, Dad looks so happy, which reassures me. But each time I see him, he looks thinner, and it pains me. Mom must be feeling the same way. Mom, are you resting enough? You look pale. I'm fine, dear. Just make sure to take care of yourself. I know. Mom smiles, but she really looks pale and lacking energy. I'm worried. It must be fatigue from caring for my father. Despite knowing about my father's hospitalization, my husband doesn't visit, and my in-laws act as if it's none of their concern, continuing to give me tasks. I'm not just a submissive daughter-in-law. I push back sometimes, especially with Louis, who often asks for annoying favors. Karen, can you massage my back? I'm tired too, so that's not possible. Why don't you buy a massage machine, or ask Marie or Austin? It's a daughter-in-law's job. I don't think so. Louis is fit enough to play golf and go to jazz bar, so he doesn't need that kind of help. Karen, I'm going to take a shower. Can you wash my back? No, ask Marie. It's no fun having an old lady do it. What sort of fun is he talking about? Since Louis retired the year we got married, it's been like this. When I tell my husband, just wash his back, he unbelievably says, as if I haven't even washed my own father's back since becoming an adult. Louis is just an old man who's technically a relative. To be honest, it even feels creepy. 3 years into the marriage, despite what I thought was fate, I'm dealing with in-laws who dump chores on me, a husband who doesn't help, and no signs of improvement. My own family is ill, and he doesn't even seem concerned. Maybe it's time for me to go back home and take care of my dad with Mom. My husband then says, I've got a business trip for a week starting this weekend. Really? Don't contact me unless it's an emergency. It's embarrassing to get calls from my wife all the time. Understood. I wouldn't contact him unnecessarily anyway. I'm also working. I'm not that free, and I've never called him at work before. 2 days after my husband left for his trip, on a Monday, I get a call from Mom while at work. She has never called me at work before. I immediately think something's happened to Dad and answer in a panic. Karen, Sam's condition has suddenly worsened. Mom's voice, crying on the other end, echoes in my ears. My legs start to tremble. I'm coming right away, Mom. I tell my boss, who says, go now. I rush to the hospital by taxi, but I'm met with a cruel reality. Mom's not in Dad's hospital room. Aw, Mrs. Miller, you've just arrived. Where's Mom? I ask, to which the nurse looks down, visibly uncomfortable. Well, my heart pounds. Where is my mother? She passed away. What? For a moment, I couldn't comprehend what I was told. I had rushed to the hospital after receiving a call from Mom about my father's critical condition. But now, they were saying Mom had passed away. It didn't make any sense. This way, please. The nurse led me to another room with just one bed, dimly lit. Someone was lying there. But it couldn't be Mom. Yet, as I approached with trembling legs, the face I saw was unmistakably my mother's. Silent, motionless, Mom was there. How could this? The nurse explained that after calling me, Mom had returned to my father's room. A while later, they found her collapsed over the bed, still holding my father's hand. Already lifeless. Perhaps a heart attack. As the nurse spoke, another nurse appeared. Mrs. Miller, your father. At the same moment I returned to my father's room, he passed away. No way! No way! I felt as if all strength had drained from my body. I couldn't understand what had just happened. Both my parents gone, just like that. It was too surreal to believe. I stood there, stunned, for what felt like an eternity. I need to tell Austin. In a daze, I remembered to contact Austin. Shaking, I took out my phone and called him. As the phone rang, the reality of my parents' death hit me, and I couldn't stop the tears. Hello? Austin? What? I'm at work right now. But it's an emergency. My dad and Mom have. What? They're gone. I managed to say through my sobs. Both of them are gone. Both of them? How? An accident? No, but I don't know what to do. Despite my obvious distress, Austin's response was cold and detached. Didn't you forget what I said before my trip? What? I'm on a business trip. Don't call me unless it's a real emergency. For a moment, I couldn't comprehend what Austin had said. It was probably because his response was so far from what I had expected. I thought I had misheard, but the shock made my tears recede. What did you just say? I told you not to call unless it's an emergency. My parents just died. Isn't that an emergency? If they were about to die, maybe. But what's the point now? That's not an emergency. What are you talking about? You're coming home, right? Why? It's too late. I'm busy. Goodbye. Austin hung up, and no matter how many times I tried, he didn't answer again. Then, I called Marie. Marie, my parents passed away. Oh, I thought it was just your father who was sick. Yes, but both of them. Well, isn't that nice? They were such a loving couple. Better for them to go together. What? You know, they say loving couples go to heaven together. They must be happy. How can you say that? Well, you'll be busy now with the wake and funeral. But it's good you can do it all at once. Louis and I won't be attending. What? We don't want to risk our health. Living people's health is more important, you know. In that moment, I realized the saying like father, like son was true. But it brought me back to reality. I informed my supervisor about my parents' passing. Unlike Austin or my in-laws, my superior, though a stranger, showed genuine concern. He even helped me arrange the funeral at the church. Without him, I would have been completely lost. Despite Austin's words, I thought he would return for the funeral, but he never did. Thanks to my supervisor, colleagues, friends, and relatives, I was able to say goodbye to my parents. And the real sorrow hit me after the funeral, when I returned to my parents' house and faced their photographs alone. I never imagined they would both pass away so suddenly. I couldn't believe that. This is like a bad dream. I'll wake up to the same routine as before. I talked to their photos. This can't be true. Dad, Mom. It's not fair to leave me alone like this. I held their pictures and cried like a child. After crying, I realized the harsh reality. Austin, who didn't bother to show up, and in-laws who didn't even attend the funeral, I had no family left to support me. Anger towards Austin began to build up. How could a husband not rush to his wife's side at such a time? Saying such things during work, that's not normal. I was prepared for what was to come. 5 days after the funeral, 3 days later than planned, Austin returned, acting as if nothing had happened. I couldn't understand how he could be so indifferent. So, your parents' funeral is over, huh? Of course, what do you think? Well, I extended my trip by 3 days to avoid the funeral hassle. Must have been fun for you. It's work, not fun. But you're lucky now, no need to worry about your parents' old age. Any insurance money coming in? Austin's face had a smile. He seemed almost inhuman. I wondered if he was an alien, unable to understand human feelings or words. Are you serious? Yeah, how much of that money do I get? What? Of course, right? A wife's money belongs to her husband. I felt tears coming again, wondering why I married such a man. When I stayed silent, Austin looked around the room. He finally seemed to notice the change in the house. What? The house seems so tidy. I cleaned it up. Like you did with your parents? His insensitivity made my fists clench. How far can this person test one's patience? How could he not offer a single word of comfort to his grieving wife? But he was clueless about reality. It was time for me to make him understand. I took a deep breath and looked up at Austin. I'm going on a long business trip. Take good care of Louis and Marie. What? Austin seemed confused, looking around the house, still not grasping what I meant. Where are Mom and Dad? Did they go shopping? You just realized they're not here? Where did they go? To the hospital. They hurt their backs. While I was away for my parents' funeral, my in-laws tried to move a very heavy piece of furniture from my room to theirs, and ended up with lower back strains. When I returned, they were in agony, unable to move, having gone without food or water for 2 days, unable to even go to the bathroom. I wondered if this was some kind of divine retribution. I called an ambulance, but didn't accompany them, explaining we weren't related. Emergency vehicles don't allow non-relatives to ride along. I gave the paramedics Austin's number, but knowing him, he probably didn't answer unknown calls. Why didn't you contact me? Well, you didn't come back even when your parents-in-law passed away, so I assumed you wouldn't for a back injury. Don't equate your parents with mine. Your parents are strangers, but mine are family. Oh, I see. That's reassuring. Then you'll take good care of them. What do you mean by take care? If they're immobile for too long at their age, they might end up bedridden. Austin started trembling. That's not true, right? You'll do well taking care of your precious parents. I have an important business trip. Our parents are in trouble, and you're talking about business trip? Are you even my wife? What? I glared at Austin. Which mouth is he speaking with? How dare he, who ignored his own in-law's death, say that to me? But I learned from you that business trips are more important than family emergencies. That's different. He never imagined his own parents in such a situation, especially during his important business trip. If I had been treated well by my in-laws, I might have felt obligated to care for them, but unfortunately, I felt no such inclination. I can't bother with others. Besides, like you said, my parents were family, but yours are strangers to me. Aren't you my wife? And what are you? Weren't you my husband? Even your colleagues were shocked. Colleagues? What are you talking about? Your boss attended the funeral. I had called Austin's company when I couldn't reach him, suspecting something. When I explained that my parents had passed away and I couldn't contact Austin, I learned he wasn't on a business trip but had taken paid leave. Austin lied and went somewhere. Why he lied was clear. He emphasized not to contact him, probably because he was with someone he'd be troubled to be seen with. You were on leave, not a business trip. Where did you go, and with whom? That is, your colleagues were also wondering where you were during my parents' funeral. You'll probably be asked when you return to work. Austin turned pale. Taking leave isn't the problem, but being unreachable in such a crisis is. He'll have a hard time explaining that. Plus, his potentially bedridden in-laws. He probably just woke up to the reality waiting for him after his enjoyable trip. Anyway, you deal with my parents. It's your job as my wife. I've decided to stop being your wife. I'm here to tell you that. And my long trip is not a lie. I don't lie like you. What do you mean stop? I'm divorcing you. I handed him the completed divorce papers. My things are already at my parents' house. Then who will take care of my parents? That would be their son, you. I can't do it. That's none of my concern. Leaving a stunned Austin behind, I returned to my parents' house. I had checked Austin's computer, finding plenty of photos of him with another woman, and evidence of their trip together. I printed everything out, making the divorce process straightforward. I naturally demanded compensation from Austin. His affair and absence from my parents' funeral became widely known at his workplace, leading to criticism from his boss and colleagues. He became uncomfortable at work and eventually resigned. The conflict over the compensation claim and his resignation from work led to his affair partner leaving him. A month later, my former in-laws were discharged from the hospital. They're now homebound, living mostly in bed due to their refusal to do any rehabilitation. They seemed financially stable with their pension and savings, but Austin, unable to find a new job, is only working part-time jobs to barely contribute to the living expenses and care for his parents. He's stuck at home, constantly arguing with them. He called me once, crying, begging me to return, but I refused. My former in-laws also reached out, claiming that Austin's care was inadequate and asking me to return and take over. When I suggested hiring a home health aide with their funds, they refused, wanting to save money without knowing how long they'll need it. Their words, as if expecting me to take care of them cheaply or even for free, made me realize they haven't changed at all. I never want to be involved with them again. I still cry when I think of my kind parents, but I know that constant tears won't let them rest peacefully in heaven. Once I complete the memorial ceremony for my parents, I plan to go on a long-term overseas assignment. I'm ready to move on and give my best, keeping my parents' memories close and living life positively, with a smile.